Hello everybody. Welcome back for another video. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you're all doing fantastic and that you're all having a great day. And without any further ado, let's jump right into it. So, you know the deal. Cryptocurrency prices moved back up further up from where they were just a couple of weeks ago. So the main topic of discussion revolves around not only Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency market, but exactly how high Bitcoin is going to go in price and exactly how long the cryptocurrency Bitcoin bull market is going to last. We have had, I want to say, lightly varying answers on the actual topic at hand. Very similar to the price predictions that we've been seeing on the low end. For those of you who were not here, on the lower end for this year, people are predicting a $100,000 Bitcoin. That's on the lower end. The highest end that we've seen has been 200,000, but that's also a the rest of the world's economy is not doing too hot, and therefore Bitcoin kind of has to take over the spotlight kind of area. And then for next year, I think the lowest that we've seen was 250,000 per coin. And the highest thus far was still that $600,000 prediction. Also not adding in the fact of the 2029, 2030 Bitcoin price predictions of $1 million per coin from Jack Dorsey, Novogratz, Cathie Wood, etc., etc. This market is behaving differently, but also relatively the same as other market movements that we've seen before. There was a bit of perplexity. Is that a word? Perplexion. People were perplexed as to why Bitcoin's price was moving up earlier this year. I don't know how to break it to you. We got Bitcoin ETFs and people began to buy those ETFs. And what happens is the companies who have the ETFs, when people buy ETFs from them, they're required to buy actual Bitcoin. So we've heard an enormous amount of news about companies having to buy hundreds of millions and billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin every single day. I know it sounds like a joke, but you must remember that there were articles like, why is Bitcoin going up? It doesn't make a lot of sense because normally the price doesn't go. And I was like, okay, well, we're at the beginning of the year. Cool, got it. But also the ETFs have activated. And when you're buying $500 million per month of one asset, of course, the price is going to go up. That started the discussion of the idea of the end of cycles. We don't have to get into it. It's basically the idea that if there is a dip, it will be short-lived because people will be buying, everywhere. You see the price goes down. It's a price that you wanted to acquire Bitcoin at, and therefore you end up buying it. The idea of this cycle, when I say it is the same but lightly different, it's different because we have ETFs. It's different because we have tons of money flowing into the market. It's the same relatively because of the 3-week period that we had where Bitcoin went down after the halving. This happens every single time. It's the weirdest thing. I don't know why it's exactly 3 weeks. Wish I could give you an answer, but I cannot. So now we have analysts who are popping in to discuss the length of this bull market, and the answers are good. They're not bad. It's just more that they're kind of what we should have expected. And I think also this is on the lower end. I'll explain what the longer end is as well, because this one is different, but it does make a little bit of sense and you'll get the actual idea. The news comes from the CEO of CryptoQuant. His name is Ki-Young Ju, that is J-U as the last name. Basically said, and it says right here, he has painted a picture of stubborn optimism. Okay, for Bitcoin's future, according to his analysis. Current market dynamics point to a bullish trajectory that could extend until, he says, April of 2025. He gets into like exact metrics as well as to why he thinks April 2025 is going to be the timeline. This is one of the, it says stubborn bullishness. It's not that bullish because most people are expecting the bull run to extend until September or October of 2025, basing it off of the normal 18-month period. For whatever reason, the timeline tends to go like this. 6 months before the actual halving happens, Bitcoin's price rises. And it's usually a 10, 15, 20% rise, not a rise back above the previous all-time high before we even get to the halving. That's the weird part. 6 months before the halving, we tend to rise in price. When the halving happens, that's when we get to those 3-month, 6-month, and 9-month metrics. If you didn't see the video, someone put together a chart that showed how much Bitcoin typically goes up after the halving on a 3-month basis, a 6-month basis, and then a 9-month basis. So you have the 6 months before the halving, and then the actual movement up. We typically, after 9 months, get to the previous all-time high from where we were before. We are incredibly early, and then it continues going on so that the entire cycle tends to last for 2 years in total. That is to say, you have a year and a half of Bitcoin's price going up after the halving, and then right before the halving for 6 months, you have Bitcoin's price going up in anticipation of the halving, equaling 2 full years of hyper bullish momentum. That's the generalized idea. So it says, what does he base these statements on? His forecast is actually based on analysis. What? I would have never thought that. By exploring the fundamental principles of supply and demand. Crazy, right? He has said and set his insights into Bitcoin's market behavior and its future trajectory. His observations highlight the robustness of Bitcoin's current uptrend, yada, yada, yada. We went past 73,000, so. And here's a little chart right here based off of the movements. We always, for whatever reason, have a 2-year period. The market's very weird because I think this will be a really strong indicator of the future. For some reason, our cycles are usually quite perfect, and I don't know why they end up this way. We always, for some reason, have the same amount of time where the market goes down. We always have the same amount of time where the market goes up. I don't know why. I couldn't tell you why. We exist in 4-year cycles. 4 years is each halving, but they're also kind of completely like the same every single time. So even in this chart right here, he shows the length of time of the actual movements from the moment that we actually have the halving. It tends to be a 2-year movement upward in price. This was the weirdest of events, but this is also when everything collapsed in 2020 and 2021. So there's no real need to go into that one. At the core of his forecast is the concept of the market value growing by surpassing the realized value, a complex measure of collective financial basis on the market. Historically, this discrepancy serves as a litmus test for Bitcoin's bullish enthusiasm, heralding prolonged periods of upward momentum in Bitcoin's value. His analysis emphasizes the significance of the trend, indicating increased investor confidence in a palpable market momentum ready to propel Bitcoin to higher levels. The calls for a 100,000 Bitcoin with people stomping their feet has increased once again. We've had them for a number of years. If you've paid attention, the metrics that people have had, and I mean something as basic as Bitcoin's metrics were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 when Bitcoin hit $20,000. We can see later on that in 2020, Bitcoin's metrics of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 had all 10x'd from where they were before. Therefore, mathematically, we should have gone over $100,000. However, the world was in a, And therefore, that's why we had that dip. And the other dip that we also had was also even more dramatic, as the only things that were doing well was Amazon, Facebook, Netflix, Google, and Zoom. And now the current situation where we have right now, our metrics for the market have all gone once again through the roof. So if I can be completely honest with you, one of the main reasons why our market even looks like it does right now is because everyone's in the game. It's no longer us. It's not just us fishing in this little pond by ourselves. There are people with yachts pushing our little fishing nets. I'll say fishing nets. I could. What's the thing with the stick and the line? Fishing line, fishing pole, fishing stick. I'm going to say fishing stick. They're completely knocking us out of the water. And a large part of market participation by larger players tends to always be knocking out the smaller fish. But this time it's a little bit more dramatic, because the fish have the possibility of becoming millionaires themselves. And the people at the very top in the gigantic yachts in this pond of only 21 million drops of water are trying to do everything that they can to acquire as much. You understand? Anyway, right. So the analysts who are saying that we should be over 100,000 in the next couple of weeks is getting quite strong. And this is even before we still have... Let's see. We still have, I think, about 8 or 9 weeks. I think that's the time frame. I can't count that well. I think that those are the time frames for when we should be, according to the earliest prediction, over $100,000 to $150,000 per coin. You might remember those were the summer predictions for Bitcoin. And that's where we get that $200,000 Bitcoin by the end of the year, should Bitcoin actually move above $100,000. Quite popular news, and I'm seeing a lot of it passing back into the market once again. The idea of cycles, the idea of how long this is going to last, the idea of how much money is going to flow into the space. Will prices go down? And I mean like down, 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 simply because people are buying anytime that we see a dip. We've had so much whale news recently, so much whale news, so much news about who's in the cryptocurrency market. I'm trying not to rant a lot of times anymore because it's quite exhausting. You can't imagine. We had news recently that JP Morgan Chase bought Bitcoin, that the Bank of Montreal bought Bitcoin. Who else was there? I mean, like a couple of other institutions, the state of Wisconsin and all. I mean, so many places, companies, institutions, banks. It's exhausting to constantly see all of this stuff, to spread the news, as it were, and see people lose faith. It's a very, very odd time to be in the market, but yeah, the accumulation is quite heavy. A lot of people are buying. A lot of the buying is happening OTC, over the counter. So these people are going directly to the people who are mining these coins, and or going directly to cryptocurrency exchanges. Yeah, they're buying up everything, as they have been for a while. And now one of the other giganticer questions floating in the sky is, how long will this cycle last? And will this cycle end? Will we get into a point where if Bitcoin goes over $200,000, $300,000, people are going to be hard pressed to sell their Bitcoin? Because if the price goes down by 15,000 and then rises by 35,000 over the course of the next 3 weeks, no one's going to want to sell. And that's also where we currently are right now. So yeah, that's the news of an idea of to where the current cycle is going to lead us. This is one of the this is the pessimistic, not a word, pessimisticer, pessimist. This is the most pessimistic one that we've had. What would that even be? The pessimisticest, like quickest, farthest, pessimisticest. Anyway, okay, it's getting weird now. Let's move on. Also in popular news, Ripple is back once again. Ripple and its developers have launched the Brazil Fund, okay, as it looks to foster the development of the XRP ledger within the country. The company revealed that Brazil comes off as the first country it is announcing a major fund to support its local tech ecosystem. According to the firm, Brazil has showcased a promising trend towards blockchain innovation. This promise is showcased by the government's active testing of various blockchain development programs through the Banco Central do Brasil regulatory sandbox. For those of you who do not know, Brazil in Latin America is it. Like, they are basically the place to go to if you're into crypto. You know, we hear a lot about El Salvador, but the economy's not that great, and it's more like a hope and a wish and a dream for the future of where Bitcoin's going to go. But Brazil, since like 2018, 2019, has been, I mean, at the top of the hill when it comes to adoption. A lot of cryptocurrency firms have moved there. I forgot what their taxation thing is for crypto taxes, but I know it's also relatively favorable. We've had a lot of news over the years as well about a number of cities in Brazil who are accumulating Bitcoin for their city's reserves, which I once again, you know, I assumed many years ago that would have been very popular news, and people were like, oh, cool, Brazil. But I mean, also, for those of you who missed it, we heard that like Wisconsin is literally buying Bitcoin, and probably many other states are going to do the same. And, you know, no parades on the street. So I just think people just don't understand the significance of a lot of this. So what's going on right now is that Ripple, for those of you who do not know, a number of years ago, I think in 2018, announced that they were going to have like a Ripple fund. I don't know exactly what the name of it is. It's basically a fund for anyone who wants to build on top of the XRP blockchain. You can kind of apply for money from Ripple to be able to do so. And this is why we have a whole bunch of different initiatives right now. This is not exclusive to Ripple. There's, you know, the same exact thing happens. There's a Bitcoin development fund you may have heard before that some company is trying to raise, you know, $300 million to be able to provide support and money for developers, because a number of years ago, and it's not that long, it's about a decade, a lot of people who were building on blockchain and for these companies were doing it for free. And no one was paying them. And a lot of them were like, hey guys, we're kind of struggling, can't pay my rent. So they started making these, you know, these funds to basically say, hey, if you're going to, you know, develop for us, you will get not a stipend, you will get like some good money to help us along with these things. And this is what they're doing now as well. Ripple continues to attempt to expand into other places around the world. I know the main focus is still on their lawsuit and when it's going to end and all these other things, because they've stated before, the moment the lawsuit officially ends, that Ripple plans on going public within the United States. And they've stated that they are and have been in discussions with around a dozen banks, if not more, just within the United States who want to use XRP, but are now choosing not to do so because of Mr. Gensler. Yeah, that's the Ripple is launching a Brazil fund. We'll probably get more news over the course of the year. If all the coins begin to rise in value and companies have more money, they're going to announce they're going to be launching more of these funds. Yeah, that's the Ripple Brazil news. And yeah, let's move on. Also in, sure, why not? I guess that makes sense news. It's a bit of a confusing article, but it was lightly popular, and I don't really know why. Tether, the largest entity in the digital asset ecosystem, okay, announced a strategic partnership with Oobit, OOBIT, a mobile payment app, and the Ton Foundation. Ton being, I believe it's Telegram, like the actual texting app. A number of years ago, they announced that they were going to be creating their own stablecoin, their own coin. And there was another texting app who said the exact same thing. And then like there was during the same week that Facebook coin was going to come out. And of course, the SEC and regulators, I mean, kamehameha'd them completely into decimation. But since then, the Ton Foundation, the Telegram Open Network, which was what it was called before Foundation, is back. They're really popular in the space. I think they also have a crypto, which is also doing fairly well. And now they've partnered with Tether and Ubit. The partnership comes after Tether launched USDT and XAUT, XAUT, on the Open Network in April. And here's a little tweet forward right here. Tether, Ubit, and Ton. According to Thursday's announcement, the partnership will enhance the user experiences for transactions with digital assets. Tether and Tether Gold, okay, which is XAUT, on the Open Network Ton. By incorporating the Ubit mobile payment app, Tether will provide merchants with a more seamless and convenient way to handle cryptocurrency payments. Ubit's tap and pay feature allows merchants to receive fiat currency even if the payment is in Tether. The integration is set to expand the practical use of crypto, making it a so. Okay, cool, fantastic. So the news basically is that Tether is looking for another way for people to use Tether. And they basically are partnering with Telegram, who is getting more popular through the Ton Foundation. And Ubit, I don't know what an Ubit is, but apparently people are using it. Basically to allow more Tether transactions. This makes a lot of sense. This makes a lot of sense as to why we've been seeing a lot more of a pushback against Tether quite recently. Is because these companies, other companies, are going to try and do the exact same thing, but Tether has mega first mover advantage. If you haven't been seeing all the weird Tether news quite recently, it's basically Visa and MasterCard created a study, a survey talking about how Tether's not really used. It's being used. Who was the other one? I think it was it Bank of America? I don't remember. Maybe JP Morgan as well. We also had something recently that was in the news, and I could not roll my eyes enough. It was a news story from China that said that, here we go, that allegedly there were criminals in the country who had some allegedly illegal operation. And they chose to use Tether as opposed to any other coin. And I was like, why don't you just tell me you're lying in a letter? Like, why would you have this news pushed out? And like, no one chooses to do crime with Tether. If you have like half a mind, you would use Bitcoin, but the transactions can still also be tracked. You would use maybe one of the coins that have private transactions. You wouldn't use it from a centralized company who is known to work with governments to stop transactions. So Tether has been expanding quite a lot recently, and they probably have a lot more money and things going on than we are privy to or probably going to have any actual idea about. Tether quite recently has been acquiring a lot of Bitcoin, and I don't know for certain, this is just logic. If they're making billions of dollars per month from people just using their coin, they're probably also accumulating and buying a lot of other companies and real estate and other things behind the scenes as well, just, becoming richer. So yeah, cool. That's more Tether news. It's the first non-negative Tether news that we've had in a while because, everyone's trying their best to hate on Tether news. And yeah. Let's move on. Also in the news, no one was talking about this. Once again, maybe there's too much news. I don't know what it is because we're constantly only getting good news every single day. But I feel like personally, 5%, maybe 5% of it is actually being spoken about every single day. Most crypto news is just like prices. Look at this chart. Look at those lines. Look at where that's going. Oh, it's going down. Oh, it's going up. Bitcoin. That kind of thing when there's so much more actually happening within the space. A publicly traded investment firm by the name of Metaplanet, that is Meta and Planet, all one word, has added Bitcoin as a as a reserve asset in response to a continued decline of the Japanese yen Going to work backwards. For those of you who haven't been seeing, the Japanese yen is not doing too good, as many other fiat currencies are also not doing well. There's a hint. Some countries say that they're doing this, but now it's kind of gotten a bit extreme. What happens during the time of economic downturns and economic not good times? It's countries actually tend to devalue their own currencies in an effort to get people to do business with them. I know it sounds backwards. That's because it is. That's the system that we're currently in, and this is why we have Bitcoin. What happens is if you print enough money, you can devalue your currency. If you devalue it enough, it becomes incredibly attractive to people who do not normally do business with you, i.e., you might have seen a large uptick in videos online of people being like, we just bought a house in Tokyo, like those kinds of things. I have a lot of friends who are traveling to Japan right now. I have a friend, hello, probably not listening, who's going for like, I think 2 or 3 months because their currency has fallen so hard. So the double-edged blockchain that ends up happening is one side makes it economically better for the country in the very short term because people visit more, they do more business there. You're more inclined to say, well, I could go to the Bahamas, I could go here, but for that same amount of time, we can get twice as long in Japan somewhere, and we can stay there, and we can buy, and we can eat and have a greater time. But the main issue is that people who live in Japan, their buying strength begins to collapse quite quickly. If they're buying outside the country and also within the country, because the inflation also ends up going up as the value of that currency continues to drop. Yeah. Metaplanet is making a strategic shift in its treasury management strategy, prioritizing a Bitcoin first and Bitcoin only approach, the Tokyo-based firm officially announced. So here's the weird part. Remember, I keep telling you, I don't know what's going on. But a number of years ago, when I was researching and looking into the cryptocurrency space, one of the things that gathered my attention quite quickly was the idea of currencies inflating. Now, you go, okay, well, most currencies tended to inflate by 1 or 2%, which was also a lie. Like years ago, the normal CPI data would usually show that inflation rates were anywhere between 1 to 2% per year, but that's not how. If your gas and your water and your rent and your bills went up and your paycheck did not, and the cost of a car went up and groceries went up, then inflation was clearly more than 1 or 2%. And this is where we currently are right now, where, they say inflation's 4.7.2148394%, but your rent just went up by $600 when it was $1,500 before, and I can't count well, but that's definitely higher than 4 point something percent. So when crypto was told to me, it was basically by a number of people years ago who were saying that there would be a point where we would, now here's the kicker, that we would begin to hear that inflation had gotten so bad and that governments knew they couldn't get it under control. And you know what would happen when all that happened? I know someone just said what? Thank you so much for asking the question. Basically, we would begin to get news quietly that governments and banks were buying Bitcoin. Now, if you are a central bank, a federal bank, a large bank, a state, a country, a government, you usually 99.9 million% of the time are going to make sure that you do everything that you can to strengthen and back your actual currency. What we're seeing right now, when I talk about like why aren't people like more excited about what's taking place? We've won already. You don't get news that central banks and the largest entities on the planet are actively buying Bitcoin, that central banks are going to the people who mine Bitcoin to get Bitcoin directly from them because they don't want to raise prices. When you hear that the largest federal bank in Germany is buying Bitcoin and you immediately don't tell 40 of your friends, something is wrong. People aren't connecting what's currently taking place right now. We are seeing the collapse of fiat currencies. We are witnessing them in real time. As I said before in another video, I don't know what it's really going to take. Now, if people aren't into finance and aren't into crypto, that's also their problem. It's, you can only do what you can. I told all of you a number of years ago that as well. I know the frustration with trying to get people into the market, trying to tell them what's good, what's going on, try and save some money, make some money, cryptocurrency market, look at all the people, blah, 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 blah. And they don't want to listen. Cool. If you tried once, good on you. If you tried twice, sad for them. They're not going to have a lot of money in the future. But where we are right now as a market, as a crypto community, dare I say, with the word unity somewhere inside there, is quite spectacular. And a large group of people aren't really getting it. I saw on Twitter, I understand, I saw your message. Someone wrote TMI. I get it, but I don't have a lot of money. I'm not money shaming anyone. I'm not trying to be like, buy more, like that kind of thing. But I mean, even as far as like excitement and enthusiasm with things on Twitter, on Reddit, online, I keep feeling like people aren't understanding the significance of the fact that we have won the race. When you see all these people constantly fighting back, not only against us, but other companies, and then we get news that they're trying to do the exact same thing that they said that they weren't going to do a week and a half before. When you hear that Jamie Dimon is talking smack about Bitcoin all the time, and people look online through the SEC filings and see JP Morgan Chase has bought Bitcoin ETFs, I feel like everyone should be far more excited. I don't have it here. I'll maybe try and show you in the next video. I have to find the article again. It was something along the lines of, remember when we got news one day? It was a 24-hour period where the outflows of the ETFs, like I think it was the first time we had like mega outflows in general. And there was one day where the institutions did not buy the entire mined supply of Bitcoin during that day. One day. The very next day, I think it was actually even when the ETFs launched in Hong Kong, we heard that the 3 ETFs that had launched within Hong Kong, what was it? Oh gosh. I think those 3 alone had purchased, I think 900 Bitcoin, no, it was like 918, it was some stupid number. 918 Bitcoin over the course of that one day, which was double the amount of Bitcoin that was created. And everyone was like, well, BlackRock didn't buy that many. And I was like, those 3 smaller ETFs already did it. We're now back at the point where BlackRock and Fidelity were in the news, I think 2 or 3 days ago or something like that. They alone are already purchasing, I think 4 or 5 times as much Bitcoin that gets mined per day. Do you understand what it means for a tree to create oranges or apples or pears, whatever fruit you want to eat? Let's say there's 4 of them made per day. And you look over before you can get to the tree, there's a truck that's driving away every day. And for some reason, they have 16 apples in their truck. And you're like, the tree created 4. How did they get 16? They're buying more than is actually created. That's probably the most bullish thing in the entire world. We already had a situation and have had it for a while. These metrics don't come out. And I think that's one of the most frustrating parts for me. We know that even when there were 900 Bitcoin made per day. When there were 1,800 Bitcoin made per day and prices were much lower, just retail investors alone, everyday normal people, and and the handful of companies that we had in the space were already buying up that Bitcoin that was mined each and every day. That was already a thing. So people keep pretending that this whole BlackRock Fidelity thing is brand new. We had that years ago. And then even when we had news that they were two companies, uno dos, were buying 13 times the amount of Bitcoin, people were like, well, the price only went up by 4% per day. And I'm like, do you understand what's happening? Even if, hear my words, listen to the words that are coming out of my mouth. Even if BlackRock, Fidelity, JP Morgan, Cathie Wood, Mike Novogratz, Spider-Man, all these other people only bought 450 Bitcoin cumulatively per day, that means there's no new supply entering the market. We know that there's multiples of that every single 24-hour period being bought up by these institutions. I think the only thing that's going to wake people up once again, if you got it, cool. But to the other 45% who are sitting here not getting it, I think the only way that light bulb is going to come on is when Bitcoin passes by 100,000. I think it's going to be the only way that people will really perk up and be like, I got to pay attention now. Because I'm not understanding. If prices fell for 2 or 3 weeks, I told you that before. It's so difficult going onto Twitter and seeing everyone being so negative and so down. Well, price, and I can see the fighting. You can see people fighting in comment sections. It's instantaneous. You forget the news that we get every single day. It's impossible to not be bullish on this market. It is impossible. But when I see everyone being so sad and so angry and so frustrated and screaming, of course it gets me down. Like I have some days where I'm like, my gosh, dude, get it together. Like it's so insane. This is news every single day. It's wild. The company said this move is a direct response to sustained economic pressures in Japan, notably high government debt levels. What's the numbers for America? Isn't it going up by I think it's $1 trillion a month or something like that? It's some like obscene. I was like, what are you? It's nuts. Prolonged periods of negative real interest rates. That's also a problem. Everything is like everything. No. I was going to say everything could be fixed by them lowering interest rates. No, because the problem is that inflation will only go up more for every other currency. If you lower the inflation rate, more money has to be printed as more people are taking out debt. More people take out debt. Prices for things go higher, but inflation also goes higher. And when I say prices, I mean like prices for assets and prices for things in the store. Everything goes up, and the only people who really benefit from it are people with the assets. Everyone else isn't doing well. This is currently the situation that we have right now. If you own a home, if you have assets, of course you're doing well or better than other people. But we've gotten ourselves, they got us into it's not even a catch-22, it's like a catch-99. Because there's no answer for any of this. And I don't want to sound cringy. I'm trying not to. But the only answer at the moment would be Bitcoin. If they turn back on the money printer to alleviate all the markets, you might have seen all these companies who are firing people. It's because of the high interest rates and because of the inflation levels. If they turn back on the money printer, it alleviates a lot of the stress momentarily, but then inflation begins to go back up. Lower interest rates, more people are taking out debt, governments are taking out debt, companies are taking out extra levels of debt, the debt levels begin to skyrocket, more money needs to be printed. to actually fix the issue of the other debt that was just created. The problem is that the debt ends up going a lot higher. More money has to be created. The currency that they're creating it of gets devalued because more gets printed. So they have to continue doing more. And the only situation that we currently have as a bit of a hope is the fact that you cannot print Bitcoin at will. There's only so many of it. Do you see what these rich people see? They know that you can't print more Bitcoin, that it's finite. What happens if this current situation that we're in can't go on forever? Do you understand that? We cannot go on this way forever. Governments have to turn back on the money printers, and they have to lower interest rates to get the economy up and running again. We can't have a prolonged period of stagnation because it becomes a recession that becomes a depression. It's mathematically impossible. They can't do it. The problem is that these currencies must inflate. They have to inflate. They have to get weaker. That's the significance of the dollar losing 99.9% of its value to Bitcoin. If you can't print any more Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is incredibly finite, incredibly rare, incredibly scarce, that's what the supply crunch is talking about. The supply shock. There not being enough. Remember I told you before, try and start thinking in Satoshis. Imagine every Satoshi is $1. Every time that a company buys up Bitcoin, buys up crypto, there's less Satoshi, there's less dollar bills out there for everyone, but you can't print more. It's incredibly rare. Satoshis are so rare, you don't understand. When we get to a situation where, this is my personal belief, when we get to a situation where Bitcoin goes over $1 million per coin, we are going to have a situation where people are going to be hoarding their Satoshis because it's going to be one of the only forms of wealth. Now imagine a situation where all these people, all these companies are buying up tons of Bitcoin. Why are they doing it? Because unlike the dollar, unlike the euro, unlike the yen, you can't print more at will. And every 4 years, we don't have to worry about someone from the Fed standing on a stage saying, yeah, we're going to print more money. Because we know that money printer for Bitcoin gets cut in half every 4 years. For the next 140 years, it's going to continue happening. That's what I was telling you. When we get to 2032, all that comes out of when a block is mined and Bitcoin, the reward comes out. It's just in Satoshis. It's no longer even a full Bitcoin. It's crazy what's happening. It's absolutely nuts. One of my friends, he was telling me, this was weeks ago, he said he's sat there and tried to tell his family, but no one gets it. It's almost like talking to a wall, but then you realize that these people aren't built to kind of deal with that extra level of stress. There's already so much stuff happening in life that to add on the fact that like the money that's in your wallet isn't real and isn't, is going to continue collapsing. That's just like this. It's too much. It's too abstract for people. So he was telling me that he's accumulating Bitcoin for himself, but also his family. He's like, they don't get it. And when they do get it in 10, 15 years, he's like, I'm going to have some for them to be able to like, listen, you didn't understand before, but like, you're fine now, that kind of thing. It's nuts what's taking place. These currencies are collapsing. They can't get it under control. Do you understand that? The US dollar will not be able to get it under control. Upon the news that they're thinking of lowering interest rates, all markets are pumping. If they lower it, the debt levels are going to continue rising. The dollar will continue devaluing. There's no way to stop it. It is a literal spiral that we're seeing go completely out of control. There will never be an economic policy for the US dollar that says let's stop printing for an entire year so we can make the dollar rare again. Because they have to print money to pay off their debts, which are in trillions of dollars. There's never, ever going to be a scenario for the dollar, the euro, or the yen where they go every 4 years, let's print half as much. We are witnessing the end of the US dollar. Do you get what's going on? Do you get how insanely historic all of this is that's happening around us? In real time, we are witnessing it. Yeah. Right. Yeah, on the screen, for those of you not looking, it says Japan's yen tumbles to a 34-year low. US dollar gains after inflation data. Right. I think that's going to do it for this video. That there's so much. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, these people are buying up all the Bitcoin that's actually available because they know the frenzy that's going to ensue. They understand that people are going to lose their minds if people could actually count and paid attention to what's happening. If the average person, you go into your supermarket and you see that stuff isn't good. You see your mortgage going up, you see this going up, but you don't get it. If people really understood the devaluation of the money in their bank account that's going to continue happening forever, people would lose it. People would lose their minds. When you have a bank account that's giving you an annual, they give you some money back at the end of the year, 1%, 2%, 3%, even 4%, and the inflation rate is 4.892175%, you are still losing money to inflation. If you receive 1, 2, 3, 4% from your bank account at the end of the year, and the real inflation rate is a lot higher because your rent in the last 4 years has almost doubled, your car note, your electricity, your water, your gas, your food have gone up by 30, 40%, you're losing money to inflation. What's going on right now is wild. How anyone at any point has stopped paying attention to the cryptocurrency market or literally lost faith because prices went down, you need to get it together. Completely and utterly need to get it together. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. That's going to do it for this video. I do sincerely hope that you have all enjoyed. I do hope you all are having a great day. Morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, wherever you might be, I do hope it is absolutely fantastic. Thank you all once again for watching, listening, liking, commenting, and supporting, and I will most certainly be talking to you all soon. See you.